Good evening, everyone. Jackie Hastings here, and we are going over Success is a Choice, chapters 9 through 11. And these chapters, I think I say this every time, but there's so much goodness in them. And I took so many notes, it's kind of ridiculous. I'm going to try to go through without taking up 17 hours of your time. But so chapter 9 is demonstrating courage, and courage requires growth, and growth requires the courage to look within. Our courage is going to be tested as we seek a truth that may be painful. So often, as we're looking to grow, a lot of things come up, and there's issues that we don't always want to hear about. There's temptations that we want to ignore, rationalize, or spin, or package it to forget about it. There's decisions we have to make to grow. We must face the truth and make personal changes. The change isn't easy, guys. Our decision to change will be tested daily. The response: others will be slow to acknowledge it. They will want to see if our behavior changes. And respect. The respect is always gained on difficult ground, and it comes from others only when our behavior and words match. So many of these things are challenges not only for our business, but for taking our products, for good parenting, for being a good wife, mother, husband, spouse. All of those things, they're not easy. And often we want to push those things away, package them up, and pretend they don't exist, because it's a lot easier. But when we do that, we stunt our own growth, because it's scary and it's hard. And sometimes we don't have the right mindset to make those changes. So something we have to think about is, are we open to listening or only open to talking to others? So often it's really easy to get on our own soapbox and talk and talk and talk, but we don't listen. And when we're not listening, excuse me, we're not open. Oh, so sorry, I got a tickle. Not, let me hit mute for a second. Sorry, should I grab water? Goodness sakes. So, are you opening to being coached or not? Do you want to take input from others and learn how to grow better? Or do you want to stay where you're at? Leaving the familiar takes courage. Are you willing to take leave, excuse me, and become uncomfortable, leave the familiar behind and grow? And that's not always easy. So those are some things we have to think about. We have to test our convictions. Will you stand strong when you're faced with that adversity? What about when you're challenged? So often, I'm so sorry, guys. Got that tickle in there. It's super annoying. But so often when we're making those changes, people see those things and they're not always kind. If you start posting about different things, positive things, instead of jumping on the negative bandwagon, um, posting about business stuff, posting about your faith, posting about your family, posting about some of those different things, there's going to be some naysayers and they're not always kind, right? Are you going to listen to them and allow them to take your path down? Or are you so focused on your goal and your objective and what you want to do that you're going to ignore them and keep going strong with your convictions? So learning and growing displays our weaknesses. And as we learn and grow, we have to address those weak areas of our lives. And if we don't, um, it's going to be more difficult. And sometimes when we do that, we may look foolish, we may fail, and through those failures, we grow. So don't be afraid of showing those weaknesses. We can only hide them for so long, and when we hide them, it makes it really difficult because we're not growing through them. When we take the high road, we take the high road even when others treat us poorly. So how many of us have had people that have not been kind to us? If you haven't, God bless you, because someday you're going to have somebody that is not kind, and hopefully this will give you some tools to deal with it. And sometimes we don't always know the right road to do. There's three different roads. You can take the low road. We can treat others worse than they treat us, and that damages relationships, and it also alienates others. We can take the middle road, so we can just treat them the same. It doesn't drive others away, and it also doesn't attract others. Or we can take the high road. We can do treat others better, we can have positive relationships and attract others to us. So it requires courage, it requires forgiveness and thinking good about other people. So if you have someone that every interaction you have with them is negative, before you go into one of those, uh, think of some positive things about that person. Because if you think about all the things about that person that are so negative, you're going to be so focused on them and those negative things that you're not going to be able to do anything positive with that person. Um, and when you have those positive actions, you might start to gain some respect from them, but you're definitely going to be having respect for yourself by doing the right thing. Okay. Being out in front makes us an easy target to us all. So if we're showing up daily on social media, it gives people shoot at you. You've got a strong support behind you, and many lift leaders up. Others want to knock them down. So, you've heard Rochelle Furman say many times, the rising tide lifts all ships. We're all here. We're all on this ship. Let us lift each other together. When we face obstacles to our progress, what are we going to do? They had a quote from Ann Landers in there, and it made me laugh because many moons ago we used to read the Flint Journal every day, and in there Ann Landers had a column, and she would give advice to people who are having a hard time. And her advice on this one is expect trouble as an inevitable part of of life, and when it comes, hold your head high, look at it squarely in the eye, and say, "I will be bigger than you. You cannot defeat me." For me, I'm thinking, hey, not today, Satan, right? I mean, there's so many things that are punching us in the face, and we can say, take me down, or we can say, not today, Satan. You're not going to defeat me. Whoever that enemy is, you're not welcome here. I'm holding my head high. I know I'm doing the right thing. I'm helping others. I'm serving a great purpose, and I'm moving forward. So, where do we find that courage? Look for courage inside of yourself instead of out. It begins as the decision we make and grows as we make the choice to follow through. So if you're constantly relying on everybody else's approval, you're going to be disappointed at some point. And that's false. Everybody else's approval of you is false. That's not where we're at. We have to have ourselves solid before we start going out. Excuse me, grow encouraged by doing the right thing instead of the expedient thing. So often it's easy to do the quick and easy fast thing, right? If you've got a homework assignment, my kids, if you've got kids, they do this. They can write down quick, easy answers. They don't want to restate the questions. They lose points, all of these things. Why? Because it got it done quickly, but they lose points. They didn't learn as much as they should have. And then when that final test comes or that final grade comes, they did poorly. Why? Because of their efforts, and their efforts weren't the best. So we can do the same things. We can do a half-hearted thing. We can half-heartedly do our IPA. We can half-heartedly take our supplements. We can sort of drink some water, but are we getting the results that we should? Sometimes we go through some bumps in the roads. Are we wanting to eat the right things? Are we wanting to move our bodies? Not always. Sometimes we don't want to do those things because it isn't easy. And you know what? But if we constantly every day take small steps to do the right thing, even if it's not easy, even if it's not quick, if we consistently do them, it gives us the energy to do it a little bit more the next day. And those constant little steps keep building. So those small steps of courage prepare you for greater ones. So if you did a little thing here and a little thing here and a little thing here, 6 months down the road, you can do a great big thing and it isn't so scary. So I want you to refer to page 113. There were some good things on there. Let me see. Let me turn the page here. Drawing things. Okay, you just need to reach your potential and to be willing to trade what seems good in the moment for what's best for your potential. That's something you can do regardless of your natural talent. So some of the things what we hear people say is, "Oh, you're so much better at this. You've had this college, or you've done this, or you're a better speaker than I am, or you're a better salesperson." Garbage. With strength and courage, it doesn't matter what your talent is, and those talents can fade. Look at professional athletes. They're good in their heyday, and then when times come, they get older, they're not so good anymore. But if they weren't courageous and done other things, um, they're washed up. But if they're courageous and have done other things and stayed true to themselves, they continue to be strong. So that takes us to chapter 10. Become more teachable. Oh man. So I want to start with, where did it go? Page 120. I know it's going backwards. So with teachability, ask yourself these questions. Am I open to other people's ideas? Do I listen more than I talk? Am I open to changing my opinion based on new information? Do I readily admit when I'm wrong? Do I observe before acting on a situation? Do I ask questions? Am I willing to ask a question that will expose my ignorance? Am I willing to do things in a way I haven't done before? Excuse me. Am I willing to ask for directions? Do I act defensive when criticized, or do I listen openly for the truth? And I can tell you, you guys, many of these are a gut punch for me. I don't like to do a lot of these things all the time. And it's okay. I can admit that. I'm not perfect. And because I know I need to grow, I know I need to be teachable, I know I need to be willing to learn, I have the potential to get better. So I want you to ask yourself those questions. And if you're not willing and open to those things, you're going to be stuck where you're at. And are you happy where you're at? And if you are, I'm happy for you. But we all have a potential for more and to help others more. And I think that's kind of why we're here. Success is a choice, and we're choosing a different path for ourselves. We're choosing to do some different things. So when you stop learning, you stop leading. And if you're not willing to learn, you're not going to be a good leader. Why are you expecting more of others than you're expecting to do yourself? Yeah, it's kind of like take that log out of your eye before you pick the stick out of another's, right? So nothing is interesting if you're not interested. You have to be willing to get out of that rut, and climb out of it, right? Engage and get excited. So if you're kind of like blah blah, so put some excitement back in life, get that smile on, talk about these things with love, with passion, all of those things. That's going to attract others to you. Successful people view learning differently from those who are unsuccessful. They're open to new ideas. Be open to that. Learning means being a lifelong pursuit of learning. And one of the things they said in there that kind of was shocking to me is 1/3 of adults never read an entire book after graduation. You think when you graduate, you're done. But you know what? When you graduate, that's just your jumping point of getting into the real world. And then your real learning begins. So that's one of the reasons why we continue to have these book clubs, why we continue to have team calls, why we continue to do these things, because we don't learn, we're not growing, right? Um, Here we also talk about talented people can be the toughest to teach. And it's funny because just last week I was talking to Taylor's art teacher, and she has some God-given talents in art. And she said, Taylor's actually one of the hardest people to teach, and having a hard time with these lessons because they're breaking it down. They're doing grids, they're doing all of these different things. And it's hard for her because it's just in her head and she can just do it. But when she has to break it down like that into those mathematics, it's much more difficult. So it's been hard. She's had to take a step back and learn and grow. And doing those things are going to make her art better, but they're also giving the opportunity for people who don't have those God-given talents to be able to learn and grow. So when we break down things into different teachable areas, it allows people who may not have those God-given talents in those areas to be able to do these things. So if you say, I can't be a teacher, I can't lead other people, I can't do these other things, let's look at some skills that you can do to break it down piece by piece. I can't take my supplements. Well, can you set a timer? Can you put them by your toothbrush? Can you put them by your bed at night? What can we do to make these things manageable for you? So pride is the number one hindrance to teachability. It's hard. Pride is hard. People who are prideful are unwilling to change and admit mistakes. The sin of envy comes from feelings of inferiority. The deadly sin of pride comes from feelings of superiority. And we all have run into this, whether it's in this business or in school, in regular life, whatever. People who are very difficult, you can see that they've got potential, but they're not willing to swallow their own pride and change and ask for help and do the things. Um, that pride leads to the loss of desire to learn and an unwillingness to change and it makes that person unteachable. If that person is unteachable, sometimes you have to bless and release. You can't kill yourself over people who aren't willing to learn and grow, and be open to those things. And that pride will suck you down and suck the life out of you. It closes our mind to new ideas. It closes our mind to feedback. It prevents us from admitting mistakes, and it keeps us from making needed changes. So really when I'm stuck in those things, ask for help, and it's okay. We can admit those things. So how to overcome that problem: recognize and admit your pride, your humility, express gratitude often. We've got that challenge going this month where we're writing things we're grateful down, and that gratitude journal focuses on what you have. And when you're focusing on that, you'll see how abundant the blessings are. And when you focus on that, that's a good thing. However, if you're consistently focusing on what you don't have, you'll never have enough. I thought that was a really good point. So sometimes when we're having people start their products and they're like, well, I haven't reached enough goals, or I'm not doing enough of this, let's write down some of the things that you were struggling with before and some of the things that you've noticed are changes. Your belly isn't hurting as much. You're not as tired. You're not running to the bathroom. You were able to eat this food. Those are changes. And I know you want to be over that hump into magical, wonderful fairyland of everything great. I know how that goes, but let's look at where you've got and let's focus on those things. Keep writing those little things down daily. And then you remember where you were and how far you've come. And then we'll keep working towards those further goals. So, to tap into teachability, learn to listen, understand the learning process. The greatest enemy of learning is knowing, and the goal of all of our learning is action, not knowledge. So one of the things that we talked about, you can read all the books, you can go to all the things, but if you're not putting that into action, you're kind of wasting your time. You're spinning your wheels. So look for and plan for teachable moments. And I liked how it talked about how reading, visiting places, attending events, listening to lessons, spending time with people who strengthen and expose you to new experiences. And that's another thing that we do with all of this. Little plug for convention, you guys. They have that on sale right now. Convention is huge for learning and growing. You're surrounded by positive people. You're learning great things. You're seeing the power of all of the community. Go to convention. Cultivate those friendships with people who challenge and add value to you, and try to do the same for them. It will change your life. So I think that those things are really important. I like how he also talked about putting notes in when you're taking notes on things. He had the T for think, C for change, smiley face for doing well, A for apply, S for share with others, and then make a to-do list after. These are some things that I've failed at in the past. I go to convention and go to all these things and I write all this stuff down, and it's a little overwhelming, and you're like, that was great, but then you don't always go back and take those notes and apply those and see where you needed to apply some of those things. And then lastly, we've got the last chapter: develop strong character. So with that, the absence of strong character eventually topples talent. That's what we talked about before, right? People cannot climb beyond the limitations of their character. So it's really important to have that strong character. The components of that are self-discipline. I wrote these in the book. I was running out of paper. Self-discipline are core values, and those are so important. Those are the principles we live by every day. They give you order and structure to your inner life. And when that inner life is in order, the person can navigate almost anything the world throws at him. So there have been times where we don't have our stuff together and our inner self is in such turmoil, and you're trying to figure out what in the world you're doing. You might have crazy life changes, all of these different things. You might be struggling with some mental things, and that's real. It happens. And it's really hard when you're on those struggles and you're questioning what your true core values are to help lead others. So sometimes it's a really good time to pause, get those things in order, and then move on, because otherwise it's confusing to yourself and it's confusing to others. Your sense of identity: who am I? And this can change over time too. How do you identify yourself? Where does your personal value come from? What is your motivation as it relates to money and power? So are you looking to do this for glory and fame, or are there other things that you're looking to do this for? Where are you at? So having those things, it's firm. So when somebody asks, hey, hey, Jen, hey, Lauren, hey, Rochelle, hey, Yashana, Jade, Dana, what do you stand for? Do you know these things, or are you lost? So when you know some of these things, or even having a discussion about that is helpful. Something that I value highly is integrity. That's the alignment of values, thoughts, feelings, and actions. People who possess the consistency that comes with strong integrity can be very compelling. You can be having a terrible day. You can be, conflicted on some other things, but if your integrity um, is there, your alignment of your values is there, people are going to follow you. And it's definitely something that's important too, even as you're posting. If you're saying one thing and you're doing another, that's challenging. Or if you're asking your team to do something that you're not willing to do, that's not in alignment. So those are some things that I thought were important. I loved how he talked about Gandhi and why he didn't need notes on what he was talking about. And he said he didn't need to have notes because he thinks what he thinks is what he feels. So when it's coming from your heart, you don't always need those notes because they're just ever present within you. They said when values, thoughts, feelings, and actions are in alignment, a person becomes focused and his character is strengthened. However, when these components aren't aligned, it creates confusion and internal conflict. I think we've all been there at times, can flow in and out of that at times, and it can be difficult. So pausing, getting those in order, and then moving forward is going to strengthen your character, strengthen your life, and all sorts of things. So um, character creates consistency. It communicates choices. It communicates influence, and that's so important. So if you're consistent on all of these things, your influence will go higher. And when our influence goes higher, we're able to attract others. We're able to help more people. Today, too many people try to demand respect. They believe that influence should be granted to them simply because they have position, wealth, or recognition. However, respect and influence must be earned over time, and they are built and sustained by character. So, one of the things they talked about too is just because you have a title doesn't mean you're a leader. We've talked about positional leadership and other things too. So, those are very important. And having that consistent character is going to help with your longevity. Again, they talked about character protects your talent and it also guards you from regret. You don't want to, sell your soul to the devil, so to speak, and have your things not on par, because that's not going to be consistent and it's not going to give you the ending that you want. So as we do this, don't give up on or give in to adversity. Do the right thing. I mean, that's like a kindergarten rule, right? And in doing that right thing, asking yourself the questions of, am I hiding something? Am I hurting anyone? How does it look like from some other person's point of view? Have I discussed this face to face? And what would I tell my child to do? It's like the kindergarten rules. Those are so important. If we follow those rules, we're on par. So using those rules, people can know what to expect from you. And that's super helpful. I don't always like surprises, so knowing what to expect is super helpful. And same thing for our people too. Take control of your life. When your circumstances are beyond your control, your character is not. Your character is always your choice. So definitely getting all of these things in line. Your character, more than anything else, will protect everything in your life that you hold dear. So getting all are huge, like I said, not just for this Plexus business, but for taking your supplements for your life as a whole. So I would love to hear some of your other points. I'm sorry I took a little longer. Feel free to.
Oh, I was say, Jackie, you did so good. And your hair looks gorgeous today. What did you do? Did you just get it done? Super cute. So when I was reading about being strong in your convictions, and having that value, your values, I related that to like having our belief in ourselves, belief in the products, belief in the business, belief in network marketing. Like we need to be strong in our conviction in what we are doing with Plexus, that we are offering this blessing. So that way when we are out in front, because we are posting a lot, we are being successful, and because other people may view us as, a vision of what they aren't, we are subject to being attacked. We have a conviction ourselves not to let that attack bother us. Like, we know that it is not us personally, it is something that they are struggling with, and we just kind of need to, pray for them and move on. Like, we can't let that harm us. So being strong, but it takes being strong in your convictions and what you're doing with Plexus to do that. You have to have belief in yourself. You have to have belief in the products. Like, even when your customer is going through, your VIP is going through detox, don't give up on them, talk them through it, have belief that, you will get to the other side. If somebody, makes a mean comment on one of your posts about, the business, you have to have, belief in the business and be strong in your conviction in what you're doing and in network marketing and in our company, so that doesn't bother you. So that's, we're going to be subject to a lot of that just because we are up in front and we are an easy target. So make sure your convictions are strong.
So good, Rochelle. In the 7 years that I've been doing this, I've had a lot of haters. And unfortunately, a lot of them have been family. And that hurts the most, I think, because you love them, you want your family, you want your family to help you and support you and all of those good things. And they don't always, they're mean and it's hard. And even friends or coworkers or whatnot. But I just have had to say, you know what? I know what I'm doing is the right thing. I know I'm helping others. I have enough belief in this company, these products, the people that I'm doing this with, um, that I'm okay. You don't have to like me. You don't have to like what I'm doing, but I'm going to keep on going. And over time, when you stick with that, you'll see, unfortunately, those other people are full of a lot of negativity, a lot of hate, a lot of times jealousy. And they don't have the courage to do what we're doing. And they get jealous of that a lot of times. And that's where a lot of that negativity comes out. So be strong enough to ignore that. Bless and release. You can still have relationships with these people, but you don't have to allow their thoughts to rule you.
You made another good point earlier that kind of ties, whoops, my battery's low. Sorry. You made a good point earlier that kind of ties into what you just said and what Rochelle said when you were talking about like swallowing your pride to, well, with just anything, honestly. And when, let's say, for example, someone comes at you about Plexus in a negative way, and like that can hurt a lot. So you can want to react and be like, whatever you want to say, or it can be the opposite and you shut down like completely when it should be somewhere in the middle and you need to ask for help. So that can be like a super hard thing to do. Um, Jackie's so good at that topic of conversation of like your family not being supportive of this. And I think everyone at some point goes through that. And then the more you do, the more experiences like that you're gonna have. So she just kind of lost my train of thought. I'm kind of stuffed up right now too, but uh, oh, the point of that was it is harder for me, I found, looking back on it all, that it's harder for me to be honest about how my feelings were hurt when someone says something like that to me. And there is like, I mean, I can't even describe or say the stuff that these people were saying, but you're so shocked. And then if it's an attack on your character, then you start questioning your character. You start questioning your morals and your core values, and then it just keeps spiraling out when this one person was hurt, and that's why they were being rude. So the point of that was share that with somebody and don't try to handle that by yourself, and swallow your pride enough to be like vulnerable in the situation and be like, listen, I can't even think straight. This just happened to me. Please help me. Because it happens to everybody.
Good points, Jade. And I am sorry you've been through that too. It's hard. It's frustrating, and our first instinct, a lot of times is to react, and the second one is to just shut down. And when we shut down, we're not serving anyone, right? Or ourselves. So those are really good points. Ask for help. Ask for help. I ask Elizabeth for help all the time. I'm not perfect either.
Yeah, good points, Jade. And I agree. It's hard not to react. I had a comment on one of my posts recently, and yeah, I just reacted and went and deleted the comment. I went back and then I asked the person in a message directly to them, like, hey, I understand how you, or can you tell me more about your experience so I can understand where you're coming from? And we engaged in a really good dialogue after that. So yeah, taking that minute or a couple minutes to pause first is very, very helpful. And then I wanted to touch on the chapter on being teachable. There was two questions in there that kind of hit with me. One was not being afraid to ask for directions. Being an engineer, being the type of person that I can figure this out. That's just kind of where I come from, and so that's one thing I'm learning about myself, that it's okay to ask for questions. And it kind of hit home recently when an employee came to me with a spreadsheet and said, "Listen, I've spent 2 hours trying to figure this out. Can you help me?" I'm like, "Absolutely, I can help you. First of all, don't spend 2 hours trying to figure it out. Spend 15 minutes, and then if you can't figure out, ask for help." With Plexus, I know this is not my strong suit, and so asking Jackie and my upline for help frequently that doesn't bother me at all. It's not a hit to my pride, but just one of those things that sometimes we got to humble ourselves and ask for help.
A super good point, Steve. And I think even more to that, also thinking about, you might think you have the answer, but somebody else might not be taking what you're saying the same way that you're thinking it. Because like my brain works differently than your brain versus, Lauren's brain or Rochelle's. And so or Elizabeth. So sometimes I'll say something and then like they have a whole different idea of what I've said. And I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. That wasn't what I meant at all. Or, help me say this differently. Or even, in some of the three-way chat scenes, things other people say is like, oh, that gives me a great idea of how to pose that for something. So definitely humbling ourselves to know that other people may have a better way of explaining things or see things differently, or not everybody thinks the same way as we do. Thank God, right? So I think those are all really important points.
I was just gonna say that a couple things. First, I was one of those people who didn't read a book after high school hardly. I was busy having kids and enjoying my life. Figured I was done with school, and I always enjoyed reading when I was younger, but just didn't make time for it when I got a little bit older. And so being in book club like has really opened my eyes a whole lot to these amazing books, and I wish that I had been reading them since I was younger. But so now I'm trying to get my kids while they're young to get started on it. And then the other thing I was going to mention is something kind of funny. I was watching Ted Lasso. I don't know if anyone's seen that show, but in it, he tells one of his players who was like offended with something to be like a goldfish. He said, goldfish are always happy. And he's like, you know why they're always happy? Because they have a memory of 10 seconds. So in relating to like being beat up by people, or maybe having the temptation to be offended by something that someone says about us. Like, be like a goldfish or like a duck and let it just, slide off your back and not worry about it.
Super good points. I love getting other people's viewpoints too. And one of the things too, people aren't thinking about us as much as we think that they are. They'll say something and they're not stewing on it like we are. And that's so important, and even being able to share that knowledge with some other people of, they said that, but they're not still thinking, oh my gosh, I can't believe you wore that today. Or, oh, you said this weird thing to me at lunch. They don't care. It's gone. They're a goldfish. And we're trying to be like elephants. Don't be the elephant, be the goldfish. Alrighty, guys. Well, I don't want to take up your whole night. I love hearing a couple other people talk. Dana, it was nice to hear from you. We don't hear from you that often. I'm super proud of you. Thanks everyone, and I look forward to seeing you all at convention. If you haven't registered. I encourage you, invite someone else too, and keep up with the challenge, keep up with all the good progress this month, and we'll talk to you soon.